Welcome back to the Project Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Lewis, and today we are joined by a very special guest, John Rooke. John has worn many hats in his career, and we are very excited to talk to him today. John, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Connor.
It really means a lot. I'm very thankful for you being here today, and I have a lot of questions, and I know we don't have a great amount of time, but I'd like to jump right in.
Sure. Go right ahead.
First, I want to start with the beginning of your career. You decided to go to the University of Texas. I know it was at least 20 years ago, right? It was not that long ago, I'm sure.
Now you're going to be a funny guy. Great.
I'm curious to know, how did you decide on picking journalism as your major, and how did you know that was a right fit for you?
Actually didn't, but I kind of hoped it was. Injured myself in high school playing basketball, and I was devastated by the injury, thinking that my career was over at like age 16 or age 17, and I would, did everything I could to kind of stick around in sports. And I remember a really good friend of mine at the time, who was a year older than me in high school. He came to do a story on me because I wanted to stay on the basketball team, even though I couldn't play. So the coach turned me into an athletic trainer. And I went to camps and learned how to wrap knees and ankles and wrists and all that stuff. And so he did a story on me for the school newspaper. And, for, like a week, I was like, big man on campus. It was great. I had girls talking to me that had never said boo to me before. I mean, it was unbelievable. And what that showed me, though, is that it showed me the power of the press. And I'd never really considered it before. And then I said, this sounds, I think I'd like to try that. The whole process was fascinating to me. And then 6 months after that story was on me in the paper, I was co-editor of my school newspaper. 6 months after that, a year after I tore up my knee, I won a journalism scholarship at the University of Texas. So, I had, a major door at the time for someone who was that young closed, but I didn't realize that I had a 50-year career waiting on me.
That's an incredible story. I didn't know that. I would never imagine something like an injury like that. Most people would assume that their career is over. Like, I'm sure you thought about wanting to go pro at some point. I'm sure that's every kid's dream, pretty much.
I never had that vision of grandeur. I never did. That's the God's honest truth. Yeah, I mean, I was an okay player. I could shoot. I was a point guard, so I was somebody who dished the ball. But I never thought. I mean, I thought maybe I could have been a walk-on, or at a D1 school, or I could have played JUCO or D3 ball. Probably could have done that. But I just loved playing, and I just loved being on a team, and I loved being a part of a group effort and working towards something. And realized pretty soon in the process that I could take this different tack to my career and still apply the same things that I love doing as an athlete. And it's worked out extraordinarily well. So I'm blessed for that.
I'd say it's worked out pretty well. I mean, you've had a long 30-year career. What, you're in your 40s now?
Wow, you scored major brownie points with me. You know that, right?
That means I'm doing my job well.
Yeah, I'll be technical. I've been doing this exactly. I started getting paid to do what I do 50 years ago.
Wow.
50 years. I've been a professional reporter, journalist, broadcaster, whatever. I started at age 16. Yeah, and then I guess when I went to college, I started to back up again. I started working at a newspaper in Fort Worth, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, at age 16 while I was a junior in high school, and was right around the time that I hurt myself. And so I remember several times I would go into work in the newspaper, and I'd have this hip to toe cast on. And so the sports writers would always make fun of me. Well, I guess you're not playing any basketball this year. Ha, ha, ha. And, so you take the good natured ribbing, but I got a chance to see what they really did. And I really loved what they did. I was just like fascinated by the whole process. And I said, well, if I can't play, man, I'd love to write and talk about it. That's how it happened. But I started, getting paid to do that when I was 16.
And it just happened so fast. I feel like it
really did. It really did. It surprised me because it took off. Like I said, within a year of me hurting myself, I won a scholarship that I had never any inclination previous to that I thought I would do. So it showed me that I had an ability or a talent. I said, well, maybe I need to try to take advantage of this. So, I decided to, pursue that. It was great. I mean, I considered a lot of different schools, before I went off to school, but, I was always, my whole family had gone to the University of Texas, and as soon as they offered me money, I was gone. That made it real easy. So it was an easy decision for me, and I don't regret that for a minute. It's a good, solid school. It's a big campus, but I wanted the big school experience. That's what I was looking for. And of course, the ironic thing about it is that I've made my, professional career teaching at smaller school, way smaller school campuses. So kind of interesting how that's worked out.
I got questions about that later, but how do you feel about the state of journalism right now? Do you think it's still smart for people my age to get into, or do you think it's kind of just a changing medium and it's not a great
Well,
idea?
that's a great question. It's changed. There's no doubt about it. This is not uh, communications. This is not journalism that existed 30, 40, well, certainly 50, but even 20 years ago. It's changed, and a lot of that is because of the advent of what you and I are doing right now. We're using the internet to communicate, and that didn't exist really on a day in and day out basis 25 years ago. I mean, turn of the century, turn of the millennium. I mean, there was a little bit of internet there, but we certainly weren't doing this. This didn't come about until the 2000 teens, really. I would tell you that because of social media, especially the journalism as I grew up with has changed radically, dramatically. The difference between what really is and what we think it is or what we hope it is, that line has been blurred, maybe forever. It may never change. It may never go back to the way that it was originally intended. When we developed the quote unquote fifth estate here in this country. I mean, our democracy was founded on the ability, as you know, to be able to hold people accountable. And this is what journalism does. And we've lost a lot of that because everybody's got their own spin. Everybody's got their own take. I mean, it's like this is one big, public relations PR spin nightmare is what it's really turned into. And there's really very few people I find nowadays that can be trusted to tell the truth as it is. And so what I teach is it's journalism, but at the same time, it's really communications. It's really a lot of different things. But I want people to I want younger people to understand, and this is what I spend a lot of my waking time teaching. I want younger people to understand that what you think doesn't matter. We have to get back to the basics of reporting what is, without any preconceived notions, without any opinions, without any right, without any left, without any up, without any down, without any black, without any white. It just is. What do your eyeballs tell you? What do your eyeballs tell you? And if your eyeballs can't tell you that, what does your gut tell you? And if your gut's telling you something, then that's when you need to use your brain and go research it to find out if your gut is accurate. And we have the tools. We have marvelous tools to do that with the advent of the internet. Over the last 25 years, it's amazing what you can find. And that's in addition to just Googling, for Christ's sakes. I tell my students all the time, hey, you don't know, Google it. And they all laugh. I'm like, but it's true. God, don't you know how I wish I had Google when I was your age? Holy crap. It's unbelievable. So, but I would spend my time researching, history and things, going back through historical newspaper articles, microfiche, all that kind of stuff that used to do in a library back in the day when you were spending time researching. And now you can research just by typing in a few things. Boom, the Google search engine spits it out for you. So you guys have no idea how much easier it is to spend some time researching. And if you don't research, then shame on you. Why are you in this business? You need to be able to do that to where you can get to the truth. You need to be able to get to the heart of the matter. And regardless of right or wrong, right or left, I should say, up or down, black or white, as I like to say, that doesn't matter. That doesn't enter into it. See, in theory, I consider myself to be a moderate to conservative individual. Okay, that's my own personal belief.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
I don't go into it thinking, well, I'm only going to pay attention to moderate or conservative beliefs. I mean, for instance, shoot, I live up in the Northeast. That's just about as, a liberal an area of the country
Yeah.
outside of maybe Southern California as exists, right? So, but I don't let that influence the way that I think. I'm an older gentleman, so I like to think that, I'm pretty secure in the way I believe. I don't expect everybody to believe the way that I do, but I don't preach what I believe to my students or to anybody else. I have my own opinions. I'm happy to offer them if somebody wants to hear them. Outside of that, I'm going to tell you what is. I'm going to tell you what these eyeballs see. I'm going to tell you what I know through history. I'm going to tell you what I know through, whatever, intuitive sense I've picked up after 50 years in this business. And what these eyeballs see, I know I can rely upon. I'm not blind. I can see. I'm lucky. And that's the truth. And so I'm going to tell you what I've witnessed with my own eyes. And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'll probably quantify that. But at the same time, I'm going to rely upon people that I trust who have seen, and I take their opinion as word because they've been trained to do that, like I have been. And so I'll say, you know what, he's probably or she's probably accurate because they've been in the business for a long period of time. So that's what you really have to rely upon, I think, in this day and age. And I really wish, Connor, that young people could get back to doing that, not without relying on Instagram and X and Snapchat and whatever they're on. That's social media, and that's different. That's for telling stories and having fun and sharing photos and blah blah blah. I wouldn't use that for legitimate journalistic purposes. I'm going to use good old fashioned roll up your sleeves. Let's do some homework. Let's do a little research on this, and then I'm going to type it out, and might put it on my blog. I might put it on a podcast. I might do it on a live broadcast. Whatever it might be. But I'm going to tell you what my eyeballs have seen, and that's what I want journalists and reporters in this country to get back to doing. Tell us what you saw. Tell me what you witnessed. Tell me what you interpreted from that witnessing. That's fine. I don't want any social beliefs, any political beliefs. I don't want that to enter into the equation. Just tell me what you saw. If we got back to doing more of that in this country, I think we'd probably all be better off.
I think you've touched on a few things there, and I think that might relate to my next question, which is when you talk about that loss of genuosity and that loss of like serious journalism, do you trace it back to social media? Do you trace it back to the media like becoming so I forget I guess I can't think of the word, becoming so left or so right? Do you bring it back to that? Is it like, or is it something else? Is it like something?
No, I trace it to social media. There's no question. Social media has, look, when Facebook first came into play, and you've seen the movie, and how that all started at Harvard back in the day, and with Mark Zuckerberg and the Winklevoss twins, and how when they
Great
started
movie.
all that. Look, it was great movie, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And then but I could tell during the course of that movie, I could say, oh my God, they I don't know, did they really know at the time what they might have stumbled onto here? And clearly, Mark Zuckerberg did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to the extent that he did to basically take that away from the Winklevosses, right? I mean, and turn that into his own thing. It has been a 21st century revelation that we will never go back to the way we were. This has been a total flip. I mean, the only thing that I can sort of compare this to was when man landed on the moon in 1969. Okay. We had no idea. I mean, when John F. Kennedy said in his inauguration speech in 1960, if you know your history, right? He said, we want to take man to the moon, right? He said that, and everybody's like, hey, right? And they were all looking like, the hell is he kidding? What? To the moon? Seriously? That was like something out of the cartoons or something out of a sci-fi picture. That wasn't going to happen. Sure enough, we did it. 9 years later, we put a man on the moon. And to me, that was a life-changing event. That was a historical thing. Well, when Facebook launched, that was another historical thing of an entirely different nature. It changed the way we think and act forever, just like the moon landing did. And I've been fortunate enough to have two really huge events like that happen in my lifetime. And I don't know if I'll be around for the next one. I might be. It's possible.
I don't even know what the next one would be. I don't even know.
And that's the fun thing about it, Connor. You probably will be. You're young enough to where you'll be around for a while. I don't know. I keep waiting for the flying cars out of the Jetsons cartoon. I keep waiting for that. That was a cartoon that was popular back in the 1960s when I was a little kid. I'm like, I can't wait for that. When's that going to happen? Oh, I don't know, 2000, 2010. Well, where the hell are they? Where the hell are the flying cars? Maybe we'll get to that.
I'm thinking about Back to the Future Part 2 when they have the hoverboard. I'm waiting for that. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, or the self-lacing sneakers.
I think they do that. It's just they don't work that well. They just don't really work. Yeah, so you gotta look. I think I should fact check that, but I've heard that they do them, but they just don't. Not great. They don't work really that well.
Dude, when you get tired of bending over like I do, you wish you had self-lacing sneakers. Trust me on that one. Okay, trust me. All right, so I digress. But I think that social media was definitely a huge part of that because it let people know that they could communicate their beliefs and their feelings to a larger audience, and that just because you were broadcasting, let's say, you're on some Discord somewhere, or whatever it may be. Oh, well, you must know what you're talking about because you're broadcasting. Well, see, that's a little bit of how broadcasting and journalism affects what social media is all about. Because when somebody was on television back in the 1970s, their word was gospel, right? Or if you had a byline in the newspaper. Everybody remembers newspapers. You might not read them anymore, but we remember what newspapers were. And you had a byline. Ooh, you must be smart. You must know something. We took that belief and moved it over to social media. And hey, everybody's on something. Everybody's got a byline if you got a blog, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Automatically, these people, their word became gospel, whether they were qualified or not. And that's the problem. That's the problem we had. The industry itself pushed people into this mass communication who were not trained, who were not ready for it, who didn't understand, or maybe they did understand. Hey, maybe this is a way that we can really influence people. And hey, that's why you see all these things with interfering in elections and blah 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 that have been rumored about for years. And it's how terrorism happens because they communicate to a large number of people through back channels. And I'm telling you, social media has turned the world on its ear. It really has. And it's up to us now as stewards of, the 21st century, of this industry to make sure that we point out to everybody, okay, have fun with it. It's great. There's no rule that says you can't have fun with it. I'm having fun with it. I still have a blast with it. I laugh, every night, thumbing through my X feed, with people that I follow because they make me laugh. It's a cheap form of entertainment.
Yeah, that's right.
But do I believe it? No. Do I believe it? No, I don't. So I try to separate the two, and that's really what we need more of in this country. We really need people to separate, the entertainment factor from the truth and journalistic factor. And of course, there are obviously reputable reporters and news organizations that use the internet. They use, X, they use Facebook, they use IG, they use all of the mainstream social media that's out there in order to certainly put their stories out. And this is where that gray area starts to get all gray and muddy and blurry and foggy, and because you're not sure, are they telling the truth? And it's almost like we've lowered ourselves to a lower common denominator when we should have raised ourselves to a higher standard. And I'm afraid that's kind of what happened when social media became prevalent.
Well, that was a really interesting spiel, honestly. Like I definitely think that's an interesting perspective, and I haven't really thought about social media just because as long as I've been alive, essentially, it feels like social media has obviously always been in my life, but it feels like it's always been used for news and for the saying that everything on the internet must be true. If it's on the internet, it's got to be true, right?
True, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, hey, in my day when I grew up, hey, if you're on TV, oh my God, you must know.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. Oh, he's on TV. Oh, well, he's got to know. Oh, he's smart. He's got to know. Why? Well, because he's on TV. It's the same thing. Oh, well, if the internet says that, it must be true. Same principle. Same principle. It's just a different way for you. Like you said, you've grown up with it. And so I'm sure that a lot of this is foreign. I'm just trying to give you two different perspectives as someone who existed in the previous world. Now I'm trying to exist in the current world. And I got to tell you, people your age have taught me probably as much as I've taught them. I've learned a lot from you guys. And so that's part of the reason why I still teach and I stay active in it, because I do learn quite a bit. And I do think that there are some people who feel a lot like, probably you do, and some of my more serious students that do take this seriously, and they are interested in, the old Superman credo, truth, justice, and the American way.
American way.
Well, truth, justice, and the American way is telling the truth and not letting your personal opinions cloud that truth. That's what we need to get back to. That's what we need to do more of, which is kind of why I like really teaching sports, because, hey, there is no more pure form of reporting than play-by-play broadcasting. Why? Because you are describing exactly what is happening the moment that it happens.
Yeah, I got to tell you, sorry, I don't mean to.
No, I was just going to say, if you're standing in front of a fire, even as a news reporter, and you're doing a live shot for, TV station, right? And you're talking about the fire behind you. What are you doing? You're doing play-by-play, because you're actually describing what's going on behind you as it's happening. That's what play-by-play is. Play-by-play is not just a sports term. Play-by-play is a life term, and to me, that's what reporting is all about. Do more play-by-play. Tell us what's happening as it's happening. That's what I'd love to see us do.
So I want to ask you about your teaching and your time. You're at Dean College, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've been there this is my 11th year there, and I taught for 10 years at Emerson in Boston before that.
Okay, so when you were getting into teaching,
Mm-hmm.
did you think that the students were going to teach you as much as you're teaching them? Like, did you ever think that going in? Like, what was the reason you went into teaching to begin with? I mean, you had a nice career. You're doing the Big East. You were working with the Patriots. You were doing all these things, and then you decided to go teaching kind of later on. Honestly, all things considered, I'm a little curious to know how that came about.
The truth of it is for a number of years, probably right around 2000. The downside to this business that a lot of people don't see is that you have periods of unemployment because the business is extraordinarily volatile. We didn't really have, as a prevalent thing, we didn't really have online degree programs. Otherwise, I probably would have gone back to school and worked on a master's degree. It was all still, strictly, brick and mortar stuff. So I sent out a bunch of resumes thinking, well, maybe, would somebody be interested in, benefiting from my experience in the industry? Back around 2000, I had been, a professional up here for 12, 13 years at the time. But I launched my career back in the 1970s, so I've been doing it really for 30 years, even almost 30 years back in 2000. I'm like, well, let me just, kick the tires. Maybe it'd be fun and, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really think too much about it. It was really on a whim. I sent out a bunch of resumes. I didn't hear from anybody for about 5 or 6 years. And then the acting chair of the journalism department at Emerson called me one day out of the blue. And she said, so, did you ever think about teaching? And I said, did I send you guys a resume? And she said, yeah, I dug it up and I looked at your background and, I kind of see what you're doing now. I saw your Facebook page, that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering if you'd be interested. And she said, here at Emerson, I've got a bunch of, students who have come to me and they said, we really wish you would find somebody that could teach sports. And she thought I would be a good candidate to try that. And I said, well, I've lectured at schools before, but I've never been a full-time teacher. And she goes, well, come try it. Just see if you like it. Kick the tires on it. Let's see what happens. So I went. I discovered I loved it. They hired me literally on the spot. I taught there for 10 years. And then Dean College hired me through my connection with the Patriots. And I got a chance to start something and grow something. And that really intrigued me. And so we built it now to where we've got we're the smallest school in the country to have a full-fledged bachelor's degree program in sports broadcasting. And, I'll put right up there with any other school in the country. I'll put it up there with Syracuse. I'll put it up there with Arizona State and the Walter Cronkite School. I'll put it up there with my alma mater at Texas, at Penn State, some of the noted, Missouri, some of the noted journalism programs in this country. I'll put it right up there with them we just happen to be small. We're only a 1,200 student school. And the reason that a lot of smaller schools don't do it, I think, is because they don't have the personnel to operate. It's a niche thing. Okay, it really is. It's a niche thing. What we discovered at Dean, probably about 12 to 15 years ago, is that for smaller, quote unquote, liberal arts colleges like we are, for us to thrive, survive and thrive in this new day and age, because you've heard stories of colleges that are folding up tent because they just can't afford to do it anymore with the rising cost of education, tuition, and what have you. The way that they thrive and survive these days is by niche teaching. You got to specialize in something. You got to be known for something, right? And plus, you're also going up against schools that have, well, this. You go up against schools that are offering free tuition programs.
Yeah,
And
my school is.
and yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay,
Oh,
look,
yeah.
I'm all for opportunity, and if you could do that, hey, more power to you. But it makes schools like mine, which is a private liberal arts college, it really puts them behind the eight ball in terms of what you can offer. So you better offer something that packs a wallet, because people are paying an awful lot of money to get into this profession. So you got to know what you're doing. And so it takes a special set of circumstances. So you have somebody who has my background in the business, I've worked in print, I've worked in broadcast, I've worked in TV, I've worked in radio, I've worked in the internet now for over 25 years. So I've done traditional media, I've done new wave media, new age media, and we happen to have a digital media studio, television studio, and we have a radio station on campus. And so we're able to spin all this stuff into a degree program that we've been able to sort of, cobble into a really cool little major. It's worked out very well. It's kept us kind of on the map in communications, whereas there are a lot of schools who, are trying to figure it out. I think we figured it out between our sports broadcasting and our sport management programs that we have at Dean. We can compete with the UMasses and the bigger schools in our area that have more revenue, more resources, and things like that, because we can be an option for students who prefer a small school environment. That's the big sell that we have. We don't have classes that have 100, 200, 300 students or more in them. Our class sizes are limited to 30 kids. That's it. My largest class this semester has 30 students in it, and that's my radio newsroom. I've got 30 kids that do the newscast during the week for our campus radio station. And so that's how I basically teach journalism. And then I'm also the faculty advisor for our campus newspaper, which we started about 7 years ago. We brought it back. And so we're basically teaching journalism 101 through that. But we don't call it that. We just call it communications, because it's different. The industry has changed. It's not journalism, as I told you earlier. It's not journalism from 25, 35, 45 years ago. It's not. The industry has changed. You have to allow for the fact that social media is so much a part of what we do now that really you've got to check yourself at the gate before you go out with something. And that's kind of where we are with it. So that's, to me, that's and that's one of the reasons why I still do it today, because I want to make sure that message, continues to get out there.
I think that it's incredible what Dean College is doing, for sure. Like I think it's so cool. The partnership with the Patriots. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but from what I've understood, I think it's extremely valuable to those students. And the thing about the niche, about like colleges finding their niche, it reminds me of my school. I'm a sports management major. No other school in Rhode Island has that degree. You can't get a sports management degree anywhere else in Rhode Island. And I know so many people have gone to this college specifically for that. Like, I know people that would want to go to Salve Regina, they want to go to Roger Williams, all these other schools, whatever, but they don't have sports management. And this has been something I've got to capitalize on. I've gotten to do this. I've gotten to intern at the University of Rhode Island. I've gotten to do all these things. And it's given me so many opportunities, and I wouldn't want to do like anything else. And like, that's what I resonate so much with what you're saying about journalism and sports and that crossover. Like, there's nothing more pure than sports. And I think that's why so many people love it and so many people want to work in it, because they don't want to, there's something that's also magical about it, weirdly. Like, there's no place like it. Yeah.
The big thing, Connor, is that sports is as you know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, we're talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars globally now. Whereas 30 years ago, It wasn't that way. Before you were born, it wasn't that way. Sports has grown because people have seen that they can make money off of passion, and that's how sports has grown. I mean, the Patriots are a great example. When the Kraft family bought the Patriots back in 1993, closed on them in '94. They bought the team and the stadium and everything was there at the time for $172 million. Sounds like a lot of money, right? Well, that 172 million now 33, 32 years later is worth 9.2 billion. Yeah. Okay. So somebody knew what they were doing back then. And that just shows you, what, first of all, what professional football has done in this country. It's driven people batty. Number one. Number two, we'll never go back to baseball being the national pastime. There's just no way. It won't happen. The national pastime in this country is football and will stay football. I grew up in a part of the country where there were two sports, football and spring football. Okay. That was it in Texas. Okay. If you didn't talk football, write football, broadcast football, play football, root for football, you were irrelevant. Okay. So I understood that when it was coming through here. And maybe that's why I sort of migrated towards, football and again, right place, right time, had the opportunity to do that. You mentioned, the partnership that we have. It was, Dean College is physically situated literally a stone's throw from Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, two neighboring towns, Franklin and Foxborough. And because that was the closest campus community and something that Dean, under their former president, who actually hired me, her name was Dr. Paula Rooney, they realized what I knew when I was at Emerson, that, for smaller schools to really have the ability to not only survive but thrive in an ultra competitive era where costs were only going to go up and skyrocket and knock people out of the ballpark, not only from going to school but from teaching schools, that you had to figure out a way to be an expert at something. You had to figure out your niche, as I said earlier, right? And so they thought it would be cool to try to see if we could do something. They could do something with the Patriots, because I can tell you exactly the day I found out about it. I'm at a function, charitable function at Gillette Stadium. Somebody mentioned to me that there was a news release out there that came out that basically talked about the Patriots having an academic partnership with Dean College in Franklin. I had to think about it for a second. I'm like, that sounds interesting. I wonder what that's all about, right? And so the vice president of sales and marketing and the director of sales and some other guys that I was at this function with at Gillette, we were just sitting there talking, just making small talk. And I said, hey, what's this academic partnership I hear about you guys have with Dean College? And they started telling me about it. And then the VP stopped dead in his tracks and he looks at me and he goes, you'd be good for that. I'd be good for what? I don't know what it is. What is it? And so that's when he said, you need to meet the president of Dean. So within a week, I had breakfast with the president of Dean College, and she was trying to tell me what we were doing. I'm still not quite sure what it was she was telling me. But what they created was something called the Center for Business, Entertainment, and Sport Management, which largely was to create other opportunities for students who wanted to get into the business of professional sports or college sports or the sports world or whatever. And just so happens my area of expertise was, sports broadcasting and sports writing. So sports communication, if you will. And so we combined all of that together. And so my job as the director of this center was to create more opportunities for our students at Dean through these academic partnerships. So yeah, we have the partnership. We have interns with the Patriots, and we have interns with the Revolution, and we have interns at Patriot Place and all those businesses there. And then I've created other opportunities, other internships with, like the Providence Bruins and with other colleges, with other businesses, with other teams up and down the Cape Cod League. I mean, we've done all these different things to create these chances for my students and our students at Dean to get practical experience working in the sports industry. And that's how they're able to kind of see that they can monetize this and that, actually they can make a living over this. Because I always get it, every semester, when I'm out recruiting or talking to parents, they're like, can my son, can my daughter, can they actually make money doing this? And I laugh. So, well, I've been doing it for 50 years. I could stand to lose a few pounds, so I must have done okay, and I say it tongue in cheek, but I'm really serious with them. I'm like, yes, the answer is yes. I can't believe you'd even ask me that question. I mean, all you got to do is look at the television ratings for the National Football League on Sundays, Sunday night football. Patriots were just on Sunday Night Football. The ratings were the flipping roof. There's so much interest in this. It's just like, and there's so many other things that manufacture themselves because of sports, because there's so much interest in it. Yeah, there's money to be made. There totally is money to be made. You just got to find the right spot. It is very much a niche industry, yes, but it's as close to being mainstream niche, if there's such a thing. I might have just coined a new phrase there. Mainstream niche as anything on the planet. Because, yeah, sports isn't for everybody. I get that. But sports is a big business. You're learning this yourself, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what it is that you do, and if I wasn't a broadcaster, I guarantee you, I really think I probably would have gone the management route. Almost years ago, I went to the baseball winter meetings, and I found a job as the assistant general manager for the Auburn Doubledays, which was in the old New York Penn League before it folded. And I would have had to move, myself and my young family at the time up to upstate New York to work for, basically pennies on the dollar. And I would have been the, assistant GM for this team, which means, ticket sales, PR, maybe broadcasting, cleaning the bathrooms, toilet washing, selling stuff. I mean, yeah, I would have done all of that stuff. I would have had to. That comes with the job description.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford to take the cut and pay because I had young kids at the time. But I came very close to going into a management route. And I think quite possibly that would have been, had I not gotten into journalism, then I could see myself doing that. And the funny thing about it is that throughout my broadcast career, I've worked for teams that have had what I call the mom and pop philosophy, which means we all pitch in. I'm working in the NBA. Okay, I was one of the youngest at the time. I was the youngest broadcaster in the NBA when I was 23 years old. The guy who beat my record, you've heard of him, Kevin Harlan.
Oh wow, no kidding.
He beat me by 6 months, the bastard. We're friends, okay? We're friends.
Really? No kidding.
Yes. But because we still laugh about it. Whenever I don't see him that often anymore. But if he's ever on the college basketball trail, I think he's going to do some this year because Big East games are actually going to move to TNT. So, but at any rate, the idea behind, now I've lost my train of thought. Stupid me. The idea behind all of that was, at the time, working with the Spurs on game days, we didn't have a huge staff. That staff was not big like it is now. They operated, the owner of the team ran it. The owner's sister ran the ticket office. There were 2-3 people working in marketing, and on game day, we had to help stuff ticket envelopes for the fans, to come pick up their tickets at night at the ticket window and everything at the old Hemisphere Arena in San Antonio. And so I'm getting ready to do a broadcast, and I'm nervous as hell. I'm 23 years old. I really don't know what I'm doing, but this NBA team is taking a shot at me, and I sure as hell wasn't going to say no. So I'm doing everything I can to ingratiate myself with those people, and we did that. And then I worked later in AAA baseball when I worked for the Pawtucket Red Sox. Same principle. On game days, guess what? We're doing everything, man. And so that's really where I think I would have excelled. And that's where these job opportunities really exist that a lot of people don't know. If you can sell, and really selling is not more than, hey, you want to go to the ball? That's your sell. How hard is that?
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Well, for some people, that's harder than others. I realize that. It's not for everybody. But that's kind of how I looked at it, and I think I did okay with it.
Yeah. I think what you're saying about the experience part and getting out there, and that's what I like about what Dean College is doing from what you described. I mean, getting out there is the most important part. I mean, I'll be honest, I hate sitting in the classroom. I can't stand it. Not for me. As much as, all the great resources at my college are, I'm just not the type of guy to want to sit in a lecture hall for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And so I like doing stuff like this. I like talking to people who have made it in the industry and had so much experience, and all these internships I've done and working in the field has been like 4 times as more valuable as what I've learned in the classroom, to be honest with you. And so I think what Dean College is doing is so incredible. And actually,
Well,
I wanted to ask
I
you
don't
about
blame
that.
you, by the way. I don't like sitting in the classroom either. I don't, even though I have to be in it because they tell me I have to be.
Yeah.
I'd rather be out doing stuff too. So I agree with you on that one.
Well, I was curious to know about the San Antonio Spurs thing. They gave you a shot at 23. How does that happen? Like I can't wrap my head around it because now it's like you know how much you gotta have these connections. You gotta have a million internships now. I don't know. Like I
Well,
know it's a different time, but I'm just curious. I don't know.
the short of it is it's networking. Okay, I knew a guy who preceded me as my first job out of college was as a television sports guy in Waco, Texas, which is where Baylor University is
Yeah,
located.
definitely.
And so the guy's job that I took, because he moved on to San Antonio, he was a year ahead of me in school. He told me about that job, and so I ended up getting the job. And then after a month of working with him at the TV station, he took a job in a bigger market in San Antonio. And so I thought I would never see him again, right? He's going on to bigger and better things for himself. And then all of a sudden I get this phone call one morning from, can you hold please for Bob Bass? Sure, woke me up out of a deep sleep. I'm trying to think, where have I heard that name before? And so I'm talking to this guy on the other end of the phone. He says, is this John Rooke? Yeah, this is John Rooke. And he says, I got your name for Barry Brickman, and he said that you'd be a really good candidate for what we want to do, and I'd love to talk to you about what we got to offer here. And can you come down to San Antonio on, blah blah blah? And I'm like, yeah, I can come down on Friday or whatever. And made that, and so I thought I actually dreamt that because I was still in a deep sleep from having worked, until 2 o'clock in the morning the previous night. This was like 9 o'clock in the morning, right? And so I rushed to the studio. That I remember that day, like it was yesterday. And I looked in all my record books that I have. I'm like, Bob Bass, Bob Bass, Bob Bass. He's the general manager of the San Antonio Spurs, who just called me on my house phone. And I'm just like, get out. I was stunned. I was floored. And I'm like, holy crap, I have an interview with the Spurs on Friday. I said that like out loud. And people are like, what? Yeah, he called me this morning. I can't come to work on Friday. Can you work for me? Yeah, I'll work for you. Good. I won't be here. That's what happened. And and it was because of the guy I knew who worked before me in Waco, because the Spurs approached him first. And he said, well, I can't move. I just started this job and I'm a TV guy and you want somebody to just play by play. And he goes, I know the guy just for you, John Rooke. He can do TV and he can do play by. So, dude, it's all about making connections. It's all about networking, because it's not so much who you know, but who knows you. And so I had the right people, right place, right time who knew me. That's how I got my entry into the NBA at age 23, until that rat bastard Kevin Hartland beat my record.
That's a great story. I'm so happy I asked that because I like that saying a lot. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. It's quite the bar. I like that a lot.
But it's the truth in anything we do.
Yeah,
The
sure.
most important piece of advice I can give anybody who wants to get into sports, whether it's broadcasting, marketing, management, whatever it is. Okay, and maybe you want to be an agent, maybe you want to be a scout, maybe you want to be a GM somewhere. Great, good, go for it. But again, your success is going to be predicated on who knows you. Period. End of discussion. And I'm going to eliminate one word from my vocabulary. No. Learn to forget the word no. Because when you tell somebody no, that leaves a lasting impression. That's the first thing they think of when they look at you. They look at your name, they remember your face, and they remember that the first thing they had from you was no, or no thank you, or I can't do that, or I'm not qualified. Bull. Say yes and figure it out later.
I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to let you go because we've gone way over the amount of time.
I apologize for that. You can blame me. You can blame me.
I've been having a ball. This has been like the best. This is a great interview. I'm having so much fun, but I will let you go after this. For all the kids, I have my audience is mostly people my age. They're mostly people 19 to 22. They want to work in sports. They want to get involved. Can you share a piece of advice for those people that want to get involved in the world? Networking, what's your last piece of advice for those people?
I absolutely 110% gave you both answers. Okay.
You kind of did.
Number one, network your buns off. Okay. Like I said, and don't do it with Zoom, and don't do it with, Riverside, and don't do it with Microsoft Teams. Don't do it with email. For God's sake, don't do it with email, and don't do it with social media.
Or LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn could get you started because LinkedIn is accepted in the business community. So that's okay. But when it gets down to, like job interview or whatever, you get somebody to, figure out a way to meet these people face to face. I mean, personal, meet them, handshake, eyeball to eyeball contact. Okay. And let's say, you're in, Rhode Island and you're interviewing for a job in Spokane, Washington. Okay. So maybe face to face isn't really going to be practical, but you still get an opportunity. Well, when you are able to go face to face, make sure that, you are looking people in the eye, make sure you're offering a handshake, and make sure you also eliminate the word no from your vocabulary. Okay. And then I'm going to drop you with one more here. Right.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Hit me with it.
When you interview, and you'll interview plenty of time, I'm sure you already have. Okay. Always, 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 no matter how good or how bad you think it was, never assume that you think you got it in the bag. Always thank them. Not in person. Later.
Yeah. Okay.
Day, 2 days, whatever. Solves a couple of problems. Number one, it keeps you front of mind. Okay? Keeps you front of mind. Number two, don't use email. Write a handwritten note card, like a thank you note. Or better yet, use a Word doc, type a thank you letter, put it in an envelope, stick a dadgum USPS stamp on it, address it in your handwriting.
Yeah.
Send it to them. You know why? Because nobody ever does that anymore. You want to stand out? There you go.
That's incredible.
That's where you stand out, because you just went old school. And that's what they're going to remember. And they're going to believe that you really want that job because you took the extra time and effort to handwrite or hand type at least a personal note with your signature on it. And you bought a 75-cent USPS stamp, for God's sake, and stuck it on there to say thank you. You have no idea what kind of an effect that has on people today. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
John, that was incredible. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. To all the viewers, to all the listeners at home, thank you all for tuning in. I've been your host, Connor Lewis, signing off.